From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Well, hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I'm Keith Allen, and proudly welcoming you into this weekend's edition of For the People. Now, many of you realize that this has been a daily broadcast, and for many, many, many years. And we've had to make a recent decision on consolidating the broadcast to just once a week, and we're calling it the Weekend Edition, and this is in the first of its series. And, you know, we never know what doors might open in the future. I mean, I might get a proposition from a radio station or a radio group of stations or a network that wants me to host a full-time show and will actually pay me to do the broadcast, and that would be great. I was hoping, I was praying and thinking that after 3 years I might be able to make it fully listener-supported, but it just didn't happen. And sometimes you just kind of have to step back and realize that maybe God's trying to tell you something, and maybe there's just a different way of going about doing it. And to be honest with you, I wasn't freaking out, when I was off the air. I got calls from people saying, isn't it weird that you're not on the air during that time? And I said, no, it actually frees me up to do a million other things that I couldn't do because I was on the air. I do miss it. I like the engagement. I like the speed of now. When things break, I can wrap my mind around it and start planning on how I'm going to execute on air as far as the broadcast and just giving it to you straight, not watered down, just the news with conservative ideas and ideals and through those lenses. And I try to make it fair for all, no matter who's listening, whatever your political persuasion might be. I mean, I make no qualms that I'm conservative and I'm an evangelical Christian, so, and I'm a realist. So, I mean, common sense at the end of the day, seriously, it needs to be a little bit more prevalent across this country, where we just look for sensible ideas that can be applied to each and every one of us, rather than just always making it about politics. And for one reason or another, it just seems like that today is the climate where we're just so segmented because of it, and especially the left these days. It's like they have no tolerance to hear from conservatives today, and that's really, really a sad thing. Maybe a victory, though, in Ohio, because in Ohio, John Kasich has a bill that's on his desk, and it has to do with Down syndrome. If you've seen what Down syndrome babies look like, they may not look like, quote unquote, a normal baby, but they look like Down syndrome children. They're children. They're human beings. And that's the reason why this bill has come to the desk. And a lot of folks have decided they want to have an abortion if they get the news that their child might be born with Down syndrome. So John Kasich and the state Senate approved the measure this week, according to the Columbus Dispatch. According to the Legislative Service Commission, the legislation does not specifically prohibit aborting a fetus with Down syndrome, but it applies to why the mother wants to abort and whether the person performing it knows the mother's reasons. And the bill would make violations a fourth-degree felony. And the state medical board would revoke a convicted physician's license to practice medicine in Ohio. Cleveland.com said fourth-degree felony convictions can lead up to 18 months in prison and a $5,000 fine. Kasich has called the bill appropriate in the past, noted the newspaper. Big victory for Susan B. Anthony at pro-life victory. Anti-discrimination laws go to Governor at John Kasich's desk would prohibit abortions from being performed because of parental diagnosis of Down syndrome. Parental diagnosis of Down syndrome should not mean a death sentence. Mike Gonkis, executive director of Ohio Right to Life, said in a statement, according to the Dispatch, we are one step closer to ensuring those with Down syndrome are recognized as humans worthy of dignity just as they are. I think it's a great move. I don't think it's one of those, things for a parent that you get excited about when you get a diagnosis. Hey, your kid's going to be born with Down syndrome, but your parents and your child's going to be born. Ruling it out is not an option in Ohio anymore. And the doctor can lose his license. He can be fined. And it's a no-no. And I think this is progress. Move in the right direction. Life is very near and dear. And it should be for everybody. Unfortunately, that debate is just that. It's a debate. Either you're for it or you're against it. It doesn't seem like there's much middle ground to it when you talk to people about this very subject. And it's people are very funny about the issue. And especially with Down syndrome. Reminds me of my daughter's baby. And she had a problem with her arm movement. And, I just couldn't imagine if you said, well, she's going to have problems and she's going to have surgery with her arm because she kind of got stuck and a nerve was severed. So what do we start doing? Because the baby's not perfect. We're going to go ahead and just abort because it's not the way that we think it should be. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so, again, I think this is a big victory in that direction. We still abort millions of babies in this country, but I think it's a great thing because other countries abort Down syndrome. Britain does. And so at least we have a state now that's standing for life in the right way. And I commend John Kasich. I didn't always agree with things he said when he was on the stump and, of course, things that he did to snub Donald Trump. But this, for life, I think it's a great victory. Senator Graham been very outspoken this week about the possibility of a strike for North Korea. And, we've been talking about surgical strikes, and just getting them where these nukes are and where the chemicals are. But Senator Lindsey Graham said the odds right now, as he puts them, are at 30%. And some have said 70%, so there's conflicting numbers for the Associated Press here. The Atlantic says 70%. Anyways, 30 to 70%, depending on what newspaper, that President Donald Trump attack North Korea if there is another test. He says, I would say there's a 3 in 10 chance we use military options, Graham told The Atlantic. If the North Koreans conduct an additional test of a nuclear bomb, I would say 70%. We're not to the tipping point yet, but if they do another test, then all bets are off. Now, how likely do you think that North Korea is going to do another test? I mean, seriously. Yeah, you're correct. They're going to do another test. They have been pressing. And now this week with Nikki Haley, with Iran, finding out that Iran has been working all along, developing nuclear weapons, using the uranium to enrich it for bombs, as we're dealing with North Korea. And again, not a huge surprise because we've made it very clear for a long time on this broadcast that Iran has been funding, has been working along with North Korea on their program and have been watching it very closely to see as to how we'll react to what he is doing because they're gearing up, they're readying themselves so they can start setting off some bombs of their own and doing some tests of their own. So another menace, but North Korea has become a menace because of Iran and China. And now we're asking Russia Trump's asking Russia to help. We need Russia's help. See what Vladimir can do. It'd be interesting to see if Vladimir would fly in to Beijing. I was going to say Beijing, not Beijing, Pyongyang, and sit down with the dear leader and have some trumpets. I just don't see that happening, but it would be interesting to see if Vladimir could do that. He's up for re-election, by the way, Vladimir. Oh, yeah, of course, he's voted himself in. We know how that works over there. Perfectly clear. Welcome to the weekend edition of For the People. If you're just joining us, I'm Keith Allen. Brand new series of broadcasts that will be heard all throughout the weekend. And by the way, it's available on podcast at forthepeopleshow.com. And you can listen to it all week if you'd like, but relevant for radio stations Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it really summarizes some of the top stories around the country. And we're going to be having guests from time to time on the broadcast. And, you know, when we signed off and said, hey, we're not going to do any more shows during the weekday, I mean, that was a done deal. But my good friend Sam Bushman asked if, we might do a weekend thing, and I was considering it. And he said, I'll carry it. So here we are on Liberty News Network and some stations that are carrying it as well during the weekend and beginning on Friday. So we appreciate it. And, here's a program for you. You couldn't get enough of For the People. Well, here is something for you. And we're just going to pray that God opens some doors. As a result, I might be able to sit in for more hosts across the country and get my name out there and actually, yes, get a paycheck for it. Forget about it. You got to have some money to live on, The FCC receives a bomb threat. The whole net neutrality deal and the repeal and the hearings and all that other stuff. Yeah, bomb threat. In case you didn't hear that, was called in an FCC meeting this past Thursday as they were to repeal net neutrality rules, which were put into place in 2015. The FCC voted 3-2 to repeal a set of internet regulations. A lot of protesters seen outside of the meeting. The Federal Communications Commission hearing on net neutrality was interrupted for this bomb threat, according to published reports. The FCC voted, again, it was 3-2, pretty close, Thursday to repeal a set of internet regulations collectively known as neutrality that were enacted in 2015. I'm being advised by security that we're going to have to take a break. This was the words of FCC Commission Chairman Ajit Pai calmly told the audience at the hearing, we have to take a break because he didn't want to scare everybody because they'd trample each other when you say there's a bomb threat. The next, the security guard loudly told everyone to exit the building and then leave their belongings in the FCC chambers. An advisor to the commission member told the Daily Caller that a bomb threat was called into the office. Specifically, the threat indicated a briefcase was about to explode. So that was kind of a big deal. So federal police dogs, they sniffed out, they scanned the room, and everyone was allowed to return. It was just a bunch of garbage. So what does the FCC vote mean? The FCC's ruling allows internet service providers to discriminate on the basis of price and speed. This means that ISPs will now be allowed to charge higher prices and or throttle speeds for higher bandwidth applications and end users. Critics of this rule argue that net neutrality makes the internet more expensive for lower bandwidth users and also stifles both the development of new internet applications and investment in internet infrastructure. Following the FCC vote, the chairman said internet users will see little difference. And the more that I looked into this, folks, that's going to be the case. The internet doesn't need to be under the thumb of the government. The companies deserve to do what they want to do, and this will you go with a company that works for you. Americans will still be able to access the website the way they used to, and they will still be able to enjoy the services they want to enjoy. Now, who else opposed the FCC vote? This is not a surprise. Among those opposing the repeal